Hello, and welcome to the Social Psychic Radio Show featuring Jason Zook. In uncertain times, we must change our focus and priorities. This show will highlight social justice issues with the goal of expanding minds and increasing unity, love, and mutual respect for ourselves and our planet. We support the Black Lives Matter movement. Our show aspires to promote social spirituality, which simply means that by coming together, we can solve any of our problems, including the goal of bringing an end to all forms of hate, discrimination, bias, or oppression. We must protect our environment, reform our criminal justice system, and protect every citizen from police brutality. When we come together, it becomes possible to bridge the gaps that plague our society and divide us from within. We the people means everyone.
Hello and welcome to the Social Psychic Radio Show. This is Jason Zook. It's a great pleasure I have the opportunity of introducing special guest Calvin Coyles, CEO of WILD Success, a world-leading trainer, author, and coach in the field of personal transformation. Calvin helps people to become professional life coaches that make money and change lives and create impacts. After nearly a decade working in personal transformation, NLP, and breakthrough coaching, Calvin knows how to change lives rapidly. From his experience supporting 200,000 clients in over 83 countries, Calvin developed the WILD method, a breakthrough way of producing results in people's lives. He's led training programs in over 60 countries for leaders, coaches, healers, athletes, and business owners. At just 30 years old, he's a self-made multi-millionaire, has 3 best-selling books, and has been featured alongside Tony Robbins, Deepak Chopra, and Jeff Bezos in publications such as Forbes, Entrepreneur Magazine, Huffington Post, Inc., and Business Insider. It's a great pleasure I welcome Calvin Coyles to the show. Welcome to the show, Calvin.
Jason, thank you for having me. Listening to that bio, I was like, wow, that sounds good. I might have to get that updated. I like that. I appreciate you having me, my friend. Thank you so much.
Well, welcome to the show. And what I love about having you on is I like people who have lived some remarkable lives and have made something from having adversity overcome. And I want to ask you, first question, think about it, is the challenges you went through in your life so far, what have you learned the most from your challenges that you would like to impart to our audience?
That's a great question straight off the bat. No foreplay, just straight into it. Okay, so adversity. There's been a lot of adversity and there's been a lot of lessons from that. But let me see if I can pick a couple of things. I'm going to just trust what comes to me. The first one that came to me was adversity with regards to relationships. I was very fortunate when I was a younger man. I say younger man. When I was 16, I had a high school sweetheart, and we were together from 16 to 26, so 10 years. And leaving that relationship, the breakdown of that relationship was a really pivotal moment in my life, because it was about making a decision about not the man that I was, but the man that I wanted to be. And in that process, there was a lot of personal growth, a lot of healing. Obviously, naturally, there's a lot of growth anyway for someone from 16 to 26. But particularly in my case, I went from being I went from a high school student to a university, college student, and then I went and started my own business. And that saw me traveling a lot as well. And there's lessons in being able to try and keep something going while you're also trying to start a business and a family and all that sort of stuff together, which is really difficult. And I think there's important understanding. And this, I think the message I want to share more broadly is, I believe there are people that come into your lives that are there with you for your whole life, right? And in spirit, we would say they're spirit guides or life path guides. But there are people on this earth plane that come into your life for a set amount of time. And then those people, effectively they're there for a certain part. And also within that, it wasn't just the partner I was leaving as well, but also like the extended family as well. Because obviously we're very, very close, 10 years together. We were engaged as well. I had a plan in my life. I thought I was going to be married and we're going to have a family together. And that just didn't happen. And, they say life happens when you're busy making other plans. And the irony of it all is as well that whilst that was happening, I ended up separate from my partner, and then I end up falling in love and then end up marrying the love of my life, Ashley, who is now is also the mother of my child. We've got a child on the way in September. Wow. And When we got married in the Maldives, depending on where you're from, how you want to pronounce it. And we had our friends and family there on a private island. And I remember saying to her in my vows, I said, when I see you here today, I'm reminded the angels that watch over us have plans for us that we know very little about. In essence, saying that, I met Ash through her two brothers, who are both team members of mine and business partners of mine. They were my first clients in business. And so there's a really beautiful sort of synchronicity of that life transformation in the sense of when I set up this business, when I make the distinction to say, hey, I'm going to live a life of purpose, I'm going to now move in this direction. The first person I come in contact with is a guy called Kim Barrett. The second person I come in contact with is his brother, Jason Barrett. And then I end up marrying their sister. And so
beautiful synchronicity.
Amazing, right? Amazing. Wow. And to be fair, just so everyone knows the story as well, Ash, they only introduced me to Ash a couple of years after I met the boys, right? At this point, obviously, as well, I'm engaged. I'm not looking for anything, obviously. But Ash was a hater. She thought that what I was doing, I was ripping off her brothers. She thought that I was full of shit. She thought that she didn't understand NLP or personal growth. She didn't know why people would spend money on this stuff. And so eventually we managed to obviously get her on board. And now she works with us and, we have a company together and she's as much an advocate as anybody else. But it's a really interesting thing. When I look at that time frame, there's almost like an evolution in who I was, that, the man that started the business and then started to grow that business, he was a different person. He was on a different path than previous. And so I think there is an adversity in almost like a snake sheds its skin. Yes. There's an adversity that comes with that you've got to be willing to give up who you are in order to become who you want to be. But that as well, it's not just an internal journey. That oftentimes will mean people, friends, family members, circumstances, colleagues around you, that also is going to have to transform as well. So that would definitely be one of the big ones for sure. And then also probably another one that's held true for me has been the challenge of running and starting a business. And, we've been very successful over the last 8 years, but we've also been very unsuccessful at times as well. And the difference that makes the difference in my experience is just grit and perseverance and how quickly you can learn the lessons and respond. A lot of people have this sort of fear of failure. What happens if I fail? You're going to fail all the time, like all the time. But the question is not whether or not you fail. The question is how quickly you respond to that failure. I believe that leaders anticipate and act, followers hope and react. And so for me, it's about going, cool, we had a setback. As Les Brown would say, let's see if we can try and land on our back. Because if you can land on your back, if you can look up, you can get up and turn a setback into a setup for a comeback. So that'd probably be two of the big ones for me in terms of lessons of adversity.
What a deep answer. And you were able to intertwine synchronicity into your answer, which really impresses me too. I'm not like I'm judging your answer with points, but I would say I'm really impressed. I'm really impressed.
10.6. Yeah, no,
that's a 10. No, but seriously, I'm impressed by the way you described that just now, having life of a purpose and preparing yourself and looking at, what I thought when you just said the word adversity, I consider it, like you said, the snake shedding its skin. The adversity is almost like the inertia. It's like the thing that makes everything move and change in your life, where you evolve and grow. And it's the catalyst that makes you shed the skin to keep growing, right? If you didn't have the adversity that was propelling you in your life, like your example just now, between relationships, business, and stress and mindset, I'm sure also intertwined in that. But if you didn't have that adversity, you would never have found the love of your dreams. You would never had the amazing businesses you have now, or the success you're enjoying, or being able to work with others and giving them also advice and guidance from what you've already have experienced in your own right.
100%.
So I think that's something, and it's almost like if you could try to take what you've learned and share it in the easiest way possible, what word would you use to describe what you've learned in terms of guidance?
I'm not sure if there is a word to encapsulate it, but if there was, I think that I've always found that the distinction between people that are successful and the ones that are not, and I don't mean just economic success, I mean literally anything, is belief. For me, I was very blessed in the sense that I've had a very strong spiritual belief for a very long time. But for a lot of people, it's really just self-belief. It's staggering to me how many people just don't believe in themselves. I saw a post, actually, it was funny, around Christmas time, which was saying it's a sad reality that more people believe in Father Christmas than they do in themselves. And I was like, that's funny. That's funny because it's so true. There's such a lack of belief. And if people just believed more, and we always say this, right? And I'm sure you'll appreciate this, Jason, as well, that doubt kills more dreams than failure ever could. Like, most people don't fail. Most people just doubt that they'll ever be successful, so they just don't start. And so it's that lack of belief in themselves that permeates every area of somebody's life, and it really penetrates the soul of who they are. And as a result of that, they live very much shadow selves of who they could be.
I could see that. Most people hold themselves back without fear. I actually did that earlier in my psychic situation, because I'm a lawyer and a psychic and a podcaster now. But before I got that, I was just a lawyer trying to figure out how to be a psychic. And for many years, I let my fear of being discovered about it, or when I was early in my career, I kind of let that dictate. So I delayed it about a decade. But I also feel like timing has something to do with everything too, right?
Of course.
And so being able to distinguish that and accept that, even in the past, looking back at the past and not holding on to negativity or regret or guilt, that's a secret weapon a lot of people don't realize. They are the secret weapon of letting go of the negativity from the past. If you can do that, which I've done a lot of that through the pandemic, I did that journey inwards. I think a lot of us did. And I learned from letting go and forgiving and being able to like look at things from different points of view and not taking life as seriously with yourself. It can help free you up to let new energy in going forward.
Absolutely.
If you have an opinion with that as well, it sounds like you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that we talked about, you mentioned in the bio, is that we created a methodology called the WILD method. And I think that's part of it, right? Which is, I'll sort of explain it briefly and then I'll jump to your point, which was, for me, we've worked with a lot of people, right? And you see the same patterns of struggle, right? People struggle with the same things again and again and again, across cultural bounds, across race, religion, ethnicity, doesn't matter. Everyone struggles with the same stuff. And so effectively three things. The first thing is a compelling vision. So having a vision for your life that is more than what it is now, and something that's going to really motivate somebody, that's going to inspire somebody, that's going to be, grit inducing on that quest to become who you want to be. So that's number one, a compelling vision. And a lot of people don't have that. They're completely lost. They have no idea what they want to do with their lives. Number two, and there's plenty of reasons for that, but number two is then internal alignment. So there's a lot of people that have a vision for more, but then they don't follow through. In your case, Jason, it was this sort of fear of guilt or of being found out or of judgment from other people as well. And so it's like, I've got this vision. I know in my heart and soul I'm meant to be a psychic. And that, lawyer is what I've trained to be, but a psychic is who I was born to be, right? That reference.
Exactly.
And people are held back. It's almost that they take one step forward and two steps back. And we said there are 5 things within an alignment that hold most people back. This is not a comprehensive list, but these are the big ones. So you've got, first and foremost, beliefs, right? Limiting beliefs around yourself, around others, around the world. Emotions, the average person experiences 12 emotions on a daily basis, 8 of which are negative, and they're quite habitual. Number 3 is your thoughts and your focus. Number 4 is your behaviors, so your actions, your habits, routines, and rewards. And then number 5 would be your values. And so, we've got a variety of tools that can help someone orient those things in alignment with what they want rather than what they don't want. But a lot of people have had, in my case, 31 years now, 31 years of conditioning those things in a certain pattern. And so you end up getting a result you are a sum of those 5 parts. And then that's the internal alignment bit. And then the final bit is a strategy bit, and which is around proven strategy. So someone might have a compelling vision. I say, Calvin, I want to be a psychic. And I go, great. And then you go, look, I've got I'm fully on board with this. There's no internal friction, but I just don't know how to go out there and be a psychic. I don't know how to start that business. I don't know how to cultivate that skill set. I don't know how to put myself out there or attract clients. And those are strategic problems. And, we've got, it's early for me in Perth. And so the sun is sort of rising here from the east and it'll set in the west. If my strategy is to see a sunset, I want to head west. But if I'm heading east, I'm never going to see a sunset. And so some people are feeling burnt out. They're doing too much because they don't have guidance. And whether that be guides or guidance here, they don't have that. And as a result of that, a lot of it is from an ego place where if people don't believe that they're going to make it, so they do too much, they overcompensate, then they create success. They achieve a certain level of status, but they don't know what it was that actually got them there. And so they find themselves constantly trying to sort of one-upmanship themselves. I think that's what I'm trying to say. And then they burn out because they're afraid of stopping any one thing because they're not sure which of those things were the thing that made the difference. So effectively 3 things: vision, alignment, strategy. Coming to your point with regards to people holding themselves back from all of those things, nearly all of this is self-forgiveness, right? It's it's very difficult in our culture. And I'm just connecting some dots now when I think about, childhood and discipline. If you did something wrong, you were punished for it, right? So naturally, as adults, we punish ourselves for doing something wrong. The challenge with that is that doesn't create a state of learning. Like a kid that's been sent to the naughty step, or that's been smacked, or that's been told off, is now not particularly inspired to now figure out how. What do I learn from this situation? We don't think like that. We're very primal in that way. We just go, I was hurt, I'm upset now, and I'm really sorry. And so you then lower your social standing, and you don't have the sort of the intellect to try and figure it out. And so people still go to that place. And so very rarely does beating yourself up solve a lot of problems. It's important, but it doesn't solve a lot of problems. Like, feel it and then move forward from it. We always say, learn how to use the emotion. Don't let the emotion use you. And so in this case, if you're dealing with regret or sadness or one of those things, excellent. They're triggers, they're symbols for a reason. Hear them, be aware of them, and then do something with them. Don't just sit there and sort of wallow in that self-pity, because it's not serving you or anybody else.
Exactly. Nobody likes a pity party.
Exactly.
And, interestingly enough, when you talk about having a vision, internal alignment, and then strategy, I mean, that sounds like that's the recipe of what you need to do to put something into action and have a paradigm that can be workable for you.
Yes.
Would that be about right? When you look at things like The Secret, manifestation, I want to ask you, I've started manifesting things in my life rather remarkably, actually, once you get used to it, right? With vision boards and stuff like that. And I want to ask you, well, how have you found manifestations worked in your life and shaped your direction of your path?
Oh, unbelievably. The Secret was one of the first, watching that movie, reading that book was one of the first real awakenings for me. I was a young adult at this point. I think I would have been 15, maybe 16 when it first came out. So that was pretty substantial for me. I mean, at that point, I'd already read a lot of business-based books, right? So Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad, for example, I'd read all of his stuff, but I hadn't really done a lot of personal development. It was more about how be wealthy, right? Because my dad was running his own business and I wanted to model him. But The Secret comes along and I'm like, wow, this is unbelievable. Like this idea that you can sort of, speak which you want out to the universe. And from there, I've always been a strong-minded, very intense individual. And so when you link that intensity with intention, things happen in a powerful way. And so for me, I actually don't think that I can put anything down that I've got in life to anything other than attraction and the law of attraction, and just being absolutely obsessively focused, but with what it is that I desire. In fact, it's funny you bring this up. I was just in Broome in the north of Western Australia recently. I was reading some old school classics. I read some stuff from what's his name? Can't remember his name now. He was a statesman in the United States. I can't remember. Anyway, I read some stuff from the Science of Getting Rich, the Master Key, and I read a couple other things around law of attraction. And then I was listening to a podcast recently about it as well. And I tend to agree with what was said. It was Naval Ravikant who talked about this on Joe Rogan. He was talking about the universe is sort of hardwired in a way where if you want one thing with all your heart and soul, then you'll get it. If you want a lot of little things and you try to spread that energy too low, you won't get any of them. And I tend to agree with that. I think that it's probably more compelling for people to have one obsessive focus and desire. In Think and Grow Rich, they talk about this desperate obsessive focus, right? Or single-mindedness of purpose.
That's a gift.
Yeah.
It's called a strong passion.
Yeah.
It's part of ingenuity of the human spirit as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
When used in that way.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's essential for anybody that's wanting to accomplish something.
And there's sacrifices you make to balance things out. Like if you make certain decisions to have that passion, a lot of the people who you see are visionaries, people who are trailblazers. They have these unique lifestyles where they focus so much. Look at professional athletes, right? Olympians and professional football players, basketball, or rugby or whatever. It's like cricket. It's amazing, right? When you see what they can accomplish and what the human capacity can accomplish just through coaching and manifesting and hard work and discipline and life's purpose, right? That's a heavy, not heavy, I should say. That's a direct example of what we're talking about, I think.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Which is why I think obviously they just had the Olympics, right? So It's why I think that they're so inspiring, because you get to see what happens when someone dedicates themselves to one thing above anything else. And that's unbelievable. I think there's always a yearning for most people to do that. I think it's something like that's almost biological inside of us to have that one focus. And then obviously what happens for a lot of people is, they major in minor things. And so they spread themselves out very thinly. And part of that is that that's life experience, but also other things is that people are trying to appease other people. And so the reason why you tend to see this happen more with men than you do with women is because from a masculine energy perspective, it's easier to be selfish or to focus on oneself. Women find that far more difficult to do than men. And that's neither good nor bad. It just is what it is. And so within that, it's your ability to just be to have that monomaniacal focus and to be okay with having that as well. That's also difficult in a world that tries to tell you should be doing a lot of different things. And obviously now as well with social, it's so easy if you're heading down a path and you see somebody else doing something cool, that sort of shiny object syndrome kicks into gear as well. And you're comparing your step 3 with someone's step 45 and people get in their heads about it as well. I think that's quite important.
That could be the discouraging side of social media.
Absolutely.
And there's also the healthy side, right? The positive side, that there's community and all these things that can happen.
Yeah.
I'm looking at your life journey right now, and I want to ask you: has anyone ever called you an old soul?
Yes, all the time.
And what's your understanding? What do you do when people say that?
Normally, thank you, and I know that's normally how I respond. Yeah, people see it all the time. Particularly, like young people don't say it; old people say it. I say old people, older than me people say it, and I always see it as a compliment. Absolutely. I always see it as a compliment, and that I'm connected to something more than myself, which is always nice. It's a nice affirmation and reminder of that.
I'd love to ask you about that. Do you feel that you've had your own intuition for yourself? Like, do you feel like you're a very intuitive person and that you're highly intuitive and have your own abilities of certain gifts? I was asking about
absolutely.
That. Yeah. Have you ever talked about that publicly before?
Yeah, I do. Not often on podcasts, but I do in our seminars. So we have a series of different programs and courses, but the first one that we do is called Self-Mastery. And in that course, we talk about beliefs and we talk about, spiritual beliefs and I've got a series of spiritual beliefs that have led me to be who I am today. But I really try to trust in that intuition. And I don't necessarily feel like it's my intuition. When I get on stage or when I'm speaking into an audience, or really when I'm doing any transformation works, if I'm doing a coaching session or something, I'll always say a prayer and I'll ask Spirit to guide over me, watch over me, and protect me. And in part of that, and I'll say as well, is allow me to do whatever needs to be done. Allow me to say whatever needs to be said to be able to help these people make a change now. And then I'll just surrender to that. And so I don't think about what I'm meant to be saying to the person. Obviously, I'm present to the tools that I've got available on this earth plane. But beyond that, I'm really channeling and I'm trying to just be connected. Now, I'm not actively trying to channel and connect into a specific voice. I don't hear voices, but very much that feeling and that intuition. I trust that to be my compass and that guide. And and sometimes, like, for example, today, if you were to ask me, like the question we talked about at the very beginning around adversity, if you'd asked me that on a different day, I probably would have given you completely different answers, because I just trust that whatever's meant to come up is meant to come up, not for me or for you necessarily, but for whoever might be listening, that might be a thing that helps or serves them. And so, there's a broader fabric that is at play that we don't ever get to see. And so I just trust that fabric's always working for us rather than working against us.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've considered from prior meditations, and I've been in like sensory deprivation tanks and stuff a couple of times. I've gotten from those experiences of deep meditative practice that we are a fabric, the universe, everything's a fabric connected as one, and that we are all one, right? And I wanted to ask you, have you ever felt for yourself that when you connect to your higher self through meditative practices or whatnot, you just mentioned the fabric, but have you felt the interconnectedness that I'm referencing?
Yeah, I find that quite a lot in nature, to be fair. I mean, I don't have a very strong meditative practice in the sense of I struggle at times to sit down and be still, which is probably why I should do more of it. But it's something that I'm looking to do more of. Taking some time out was good for that. But certainly when I'm in connection within nature, and obviously we've got some unbelievable landscapes here in Australia. When I'm in those spaces, it's just remarkable to really feel how involved everything is, right? I definitely get that overwhelming sensation when I'm in those places for sure.
Wow. Nature is actually a healing modality to me. I feel like when we go out to nature and we're around and amongst, the trees and nature itself, I feel like you can actually heal a lot from the internal stuff that we deal with. And
yes, absolutely.
Have you ever had a healing experience in nature, and would you be willing to share it?
Well, I guess I'm certainly willing to share. I'm just trying to identify. I think what the science is telling us beyond the spirit is that, when you are in a world that is constructed, right? Like this world that we're in is constructed, then there's a certain sort of cognitive load that happens on the brain. And that when you go into deep nature, where you can't see construct and it's all just creation, right? Trees, plants, etc., or natural landscapes, it's almost like a cleaning that happens in your brain where it just decompresses. So I have definitely found moments of that where I've been, wired, and then being able to go into deep nature is just like you almost get like this drop, right? It just drops. And that's been rather beautiful. I'm trying to think about or connect in with a time where I feel like I've had a healing that I've been aware of. Nothing's coming to mind, but there's more times than I can count where I've just been transcendent or transpondent in the sense of, you're here, but you just are like, wow, this is beyond this moment. And I tend to find in those moments that there's a sense of replenish that happens, but then there's also a sense of tremendous expansion of going, wow, okay, fuck, this then inspires me to then want to go and to do even more with my life to reach people at a different level and to accomplish more for myself, my family as well. A lot of my energy is around expansion. And so that tends to tap in naturally to that experience as well.
Where do you see yourself 5 years from now?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, I'll definitely have a little one, probably even two. So that's probably the big rocks over the next couple of years.
I see two.
You see two?
I see two. I'm just telling you what I pick up when you said that. Yeah, sometimes I'll pick up stuff when people say stuff to me. I'll get yes or no's or answers. I got two. Yeah.
Nice, beautiful. Well, we've got a little girl on the way. Who knows? Might have a little girl, a little boy. I might be blessed with two little girls, which would be a challenge, I'm sure. So I think that's obviously the big one is having the little ones. 30. I'll be 36 in 5 years. So what do we want to be doing? To be fair, Jason, really nothing different to what I'm doing now. I just want to be doing it better. And I've got to the point in my life now as well, just reflecting on this recently, where bigger is not necessarily better. I do believe we'll scale our impact. There's no doubt about that. But in terms of a bigger team or a bigger company, it's not necessarily what I'm looking for, particularly with the family and the lifestyle aspect of that. So if I can continue to be of service, if I can continue to learn and grow, if I can continue to make money and change lives, that's all I want to be doing. I'm doing that now. So I just want more expansion in that case. And the opportunity to obviously be tremendously connected to my new family, which is going to be just magical. So that's going to be a big one as well. But doing all the sim stuff that I'm doing now.
Tell us about your podcast.
Yep. So we have a show called The Wildcast, and basically we do a couple of things. So we have we do interviews like what you're doing now with me, which I love doing, get to unpick mindset of different people and hear their stories and their experiences. Is always something to learn. So I love that. I love speaking to fascinating, interesting people. But then we also do as well little snippets of just wisdom from me or lessons. A lot of obviously personal development content on there as well, where we get to sort of unpack different problems and challenges for people and then give them some strategies and some skills to be able to make that personal transformation shift. So it's an interview show, but then there's also episodes as well with just me just sharing and giving insights and helping people kick goals. That's basically what it is. It's called the Wildcast. So WILD, WILD, which stands for Wellness, Income, Love, Lifestyle, Direction, which is the company name, and then cast, hence podcast.
What have you enjoyed the most about having your own podcast?
I think that's the point I just made, which was being able to interview people. We use a site, obviously, hence why we connected, which is called Podmatch, which we've only been on for not that long.
Exactly.
It's excellent because it obviously Podmatch is very well established in particularly Canada and America. So I've spoken to a lot of Canadians and a lot of Americans, which has been really wonderful because it's not a market that we have spent a lot of time cultivating. We're mostly Australia and New Zealand and then the UK. And so Europe, that's more our markets. So it's wonderful just to expose to new people. But the big one is just conversations, just being able to have conversations with people that without a podcast, you would never come in contact with that person.
You're right. Look at, we're talking right now. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
There's no of it. You're right.
There's no overlap of your lives outside of this as well. So I think that's a really wonderful experience. And when you've got interesting people coming together, having interesting conversations, that's a fascinating place for me to be. And I enjoy that. I think there's all the stuff that you can learn from that. So when Jade, my media manager, first set it all up, she asked me, she said, what type of podcast do you want to be on? What type of people do you want to interview? And I said, look, I just want to speak to interesting people. I said, if I speak to interesting people, that gives me a sense of variety, allows my brain to think about things in different perspectives. I want to be challenged. I want to be excited, all of those things. So I think there can be a difficulty, and I found this certainly in my own life, where as you become more successful, you think about it as like a mountain analogy. As you climb the mountain, there's less people, right? So there's a lot of people at the base of the mountain, less people at the top of the mountain. And not necessarily from a leader's perspective, but just rather it's quite isolating. I live very much in a bit of a bubble, right? Where I'm surrounded by people that either work with me or work for me, or my immediate family group. And so as a result of that, I got a very curated sort of inner circle just because of the fact that, the people you hang around are so important. And so the beauty of that is that you can build a great network, but the challenge is as well that it's difficult as a result of that to sort of expose yourself to new ideas and new insights and new understandings. And so doing these podcasts allows you to really sort of roll the dice and you go, cool, I don't know what this is going to be like, but this is a wonderful opportunity. But you've already curated it where you're speaking to people that are effectively also climbing their own mountain. They're just not climbing the same one as yours. So that's been the most exciting bit for me. That's what I've really enjoyed. Hence why I keep doing these, because otherwise, if I wasn't loving it, I wouldn't do it anymore.
I'm going to tell you, I feel like we're on a wave, right? We're like surfing the wave of podcasting. But I feel like everyone that comes on my show, I have not only just an amazing conversation or discussion about spirituality and greater purpose and meaning and mindfulness and those other topics. But then I'm also like formulating amazing connections with people and relationships, right? Because we're all discovering each other through these interviews. But I feel like I learn from every interview I have.
Absolutely.
I'm either on or that I'm giving, because I feel like the interplay there, it creates a lot of wisdom, not only for our audience with an episode, but for me, I made a joke with my mom about it. And I said that my podcast, anyone's podcast, it's like a snapshot of that person at that particular point in time. And your podcast is a gallery of all the images.
Yeah, I like that.
Come on, right? A little artistic there, but that's how I look at it. Let me ask you this: what do you believe in reference to your goal to leave your greatest impact in the world? What would that be, and how do you feel like you'll achieve that?
So effectively, two questions, right? One is what is the greatest impact I want to leave in the world, and how do you feel like I'm going to achieve that? Yeah. I think it's multifaceted. I think that there's always an element, which is that you strive to try and make an impact in a group of people through your work, but you never really fully appreciate the micro expressions of your life. So it's like your life, you talk about, my work in terms of human transformation, I really see that as being the sort of the tip of the spear, right? But it's not the whole spear. That's just the tip of the spear. And then there's the rest of the spear as well. Then the person throwing the spear, for the analogy. And so I think with that in mind, I know now, and I so really stand firm on this in the sense that if I was to pass away today on my way to work, and knock on wood, that hopefully that doesn't happen, right? But if I was, I know I passed having made a tremendous impact in people's lives. But I'm only aware of the tremendous impact in people's lives through first order consequence, in the sense that I've had direct interaction with thousands of people, and I've changed lives, and I've done great stuff with my work. And, these podcasts and that sort of stuff as well are out there, and I hear things from people. So I've got an awareness, at least a surface level awareness of the impact. But I don't know the impact that this podcast might have on somebody who's listening, and then what they might do with their life moving forward. And then the impact of that person might impact somebody else. So you don't know what the second, third, fourth degree impacts are. So there's a lot of peace in knowing that, because I'm very clear about the fact that I know from a first order perspective, I have made a dent, right? So whatever happens after that is a bonus. So I don't think, and it would be impossible to comprehend, certainly to my mind. I mean, there may be people out there that have be able to think about it, but I certainly couldn't think about what the full summation of that is. But for me, I want to know in a very simple way. I remember listening to Will Smith talk about this. He said that his grandma had instilled a spiritual belief, which is that you've got a responsibility to make every group you come in contact with better, like to try and improve people's lives. And so I like that. I like that in a very simple way. And that helps me be more intentional about my individual interactions, is to go, hey, how can you make everybody you come in contact with life better in some way? I like that. So that's one thing for sure. In terms of my work, I come back to the principle we talked about earlier, which was belief. And there's a tremendous lack of belief. And, if you could sort of wave a magic wand and give everybody something, I'd give them belief. I'd give them self-belief. Earned self-belief, not just self-belief, but earned self-belief. I think if I can do that in my lifetime for as many people as possible, that'd be excellent. I think because that is really the master key that unlocks a lot of other stuff as well. If you have self-belief, it's unbelievable what you can accomplish and achieve. If you don't, then you're just simply never going to get started. So I think that's really important for me. And we want to try and change as many lives as possible. And, Wild, my current company, that's the main vehicle for it. But there'll be other vehicles in the future, I'm sure. And obviously my family will be a key part of that as well. As someone that's very highly strong, that's obviously got very strong spiritual beliefs and a sense of strong belief around why he's here in terms of myself, having a child now as well is a really interesting experience, because now in your mind, you start thinking about legacy and you start thinking about, a family, and you go, okay, well, is my purpose here to make an impact in my life, or really am I here to be a vessel for my daughter and to best empower her with those skills? And is she now the baton carrier that's going to go out there and make an impact? And was I really just laying the groundwork for her? And that becomes a really interesting one for me, particularly because I've got a very strong sense of self-ego. And so having this idea of going, well, maybe it wasn't about you, maybe it was about her, and now you're ready to pass that baton, that becomes a really interesting dynamic for me. It's actually quite liberating and quite exciting. So I don't really know how that's going to play out as well. But what I would like to think is this. When you think about really great families in history, and I say great families that made a big impact in the world, and there's plenty of examples, right? You look at the Kennedys, you look at the Rockefellers. Yeah, you look at the Clintons, you look at dynasties, right, that were created over time. Even what Branson's done recently with his two kids as well, I think is remarkable. There's a real opportunity for your family to mean something beyond just living, right? It can be really a symbol. And I'd love for my family to be that, if that's what they wanted as well. So I think that the biggest legacy is going to be through my children. And I think then the rest of it will be through my work. And do I ever feel like I'm going to finish that or get there? Probably not. I think there's always going to be more, but I think it's a perspective of, did you do the best that you had with what you had, with what you've got? And I like to think that I'm doing that. I probably can do more. I probably could do a lot less. So that's probably my internal feelings about it.
I can see you. Are you already in North America with your company?
We're doing stuff in North America.
Yeah, like a regular company presence, like expanded into like operations in North America. We do a little. I see a bigger presence for you in North America in the future, like expansion into Canada, the United States, and even Mexico. Yeah. We've done a little bit of stuff there. The time zone's a bit difficult for us, but yes, we have done a bit. I'd see that your future path too with your daughter. When you're talking about expanding, I could see her helping expand that in the future. So it's funny when you say things, I can get sometimes glimpses of one's future self a little bit. And I feel like that's validating what you're saying in terms of your goals. I feel like you will be expanding even more so.
Put it to work. I want to relax now.
Where do you find time, like downtime? Like, what do you do in your downtime? It sounds like you don't have a lot of it. Maybe you do. I don't know. What do you do when you are in downtime?
Look, I keep myself pretty busy because I'm very passionate about what we do. In saying that, I do have downtime. I'm certainly better at it now than what I used to be. So, my wife and I, Ash, we love traveling. So we just went and did a little trip to Broome for a couple of days. I still worked while I was up there, but we went and took a couple of days. And then also we're going to take off and do a couple of days as well, just in the end of this week, actually, we're taking a couple of days off. So we like to travel. I love new experiences. I love getting away, seeing different places. And obviously pre-COVID, we could do a lot more of that than we can now. But even just domestically, we do a bit of that. That's one of them. We love watching movies. We love just vegging out and just chilling. Or we also love going out and beautiful dinners. And so for me, it's about, sharing time mostly with her. If I can just wrap up into a bit of a cocoon, then that's a happy place for me. Yeah, I do a bit of that. If I've got a sort of a vice or an indulgence myself personally, I don't do a lot, but I'm a big soccer fan. So for me, watching soccer, if I play a bit of FIFA as well, that'll be it as well. I go through phases, right, where it's like this sort of 16 or 15-year-old boy that wants to play video games. I'll play Xbox for like 2 days, and then I need to do something again with my life, and then I'll get back into business. That's
You're nursing your inner child, man. You're nursing your child.
That's it.
That's what I call it. It's all about nurturing your inner child.
Yeah, absolutely. So they're probably the big things. I read a heap. I love reading. So when we're up, a good example would have been last week where we went away on a bit of a trip, and we were up there for 4 days. I think I read 4 books in 4 days. So I love reading. I love being away. For me, downtime for me is like time I can get away from the noise of everything else that's going on in life. No one can call me or distract me with shit. I can be in some place that's beautiful, and I can be learning and growing. Like if I can do those couple of things, then that's pretty transcendent. So that's great.
Have you ever had a metaphysical experience? I know you said about meditation. Sometimes you try to do it more than you wish you could, but have you ever had an experience where you've been able to like feel like you were, it was mystical or it was spiritual, like something that really was like a profound impact on you? And if so, what was it?
Oh, I've had many experiences like that. So my granddad passed when I was 15, 16. And he, I speak to him regularly in spirit. But one of the memory that came to mind, actually, I was just talking to Ash about this just the other day, actually, was when I was younger. I think I was 19 or 20. I went to India and I spent about a month traveling around, backpacking solo around India. I booked a one-way flight. I didn't book a return ticket. I figured I'd figure it out. And I spent a couple of days in the Bahid Gaya, the Bodhi tree, which is the tree where the prince became the Buddha and achieved enlightenment. The Dalai Lama had just led a pilgrimage from Dharamsala, which is in the north of India, to the Bodhi tree, which is also in the north, but it's like you're heading from north or northwest to sort of central north for Bahid Gaya. And there was thousands. I mean, I'm talking, it was a sea of robes, right? These beautiful orange, red robes. So thousands of monks. The Dalai Lama had since left when I arrived. I just got there 2 or 3 days after. So sitting in meditation and in prayer while they're chanting and they're doing their rituals, sitting around the Bodhi tree and meditating in that experience, that was pretty fucking phenomenal. So that would have been right up there with one of the most amazing experiences. And just again, a beautiful synchronicity. I didn't know the Dalai Lama was leading this sort of pilgrimage. I had no idea about that. It was just remarkable. So that was quite wonderful. But I've had many other moments where I've just been even in little moments of doubt or little moments of worry or whatever it might be. And then I see a sign that granddad is with me, and that sort of transports me. So there's been a lot of references for that, but that's one that comes to mind.
I shake my head because I can relate what you're saying. It resonates with me because my grandfather is supportive of me too. So It's pretty cool, right? You can understand that spiritual connection. Yeah. It's like your guide, it's your North Star. Yeah. Do you consider yourself a creative artist?
Yes, I would say. Yeah, I wouldn't use that language, but yeah, I'll say yes.
And how so?
Well, I think that I'll break it down, creative and artist. For me, the creativity bit comes in the work of running this business, of coming off new programs, of new ways of healing. And the artistry is in human transformation. That's my art. That's my craft, right?
I love it. That's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
I love when people can describe what they do as an art form, because it's a form of expression. It's a form of your talents being able to be expressed to the masses, right? And you're educating and informing other people in a way to help them heal. You're offering healing modalities.
Yes.
I can see you being more of a creative artist in the future. I feel like you'll be doing films that you'll produce that'll be more in line with what you believe. As you go, I feel like you'll expand into that media, as that is something you'll do in the future.
Excellent.
At some point.
Jade, my media manager, will be very excited about that.
Yeah, no, I could see that, because I pick up off your energy. I see expansion into creative arts, and I see you having messages conveyed through your videos. So I wouldn't be surprised if you don't do production stuff to put out on social media and build up a YouTube presence even more than you have already.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, that's just me offering my 2 cents as we talk and have these amazing conversations of exchange of information for our audience's benefit. Mm-hmm. When you look at self-help, during the pandemic, I know a lot of people struggled with a lot of uncertainty and a lot of despair and a lot of dark feelings, I would say, right? And a lot of people will be like, oh, well, if you smile, it can help, make you feel better. But a lot of people don't get there, right? If they can't smile to begin with. So I ask you, when you look at self-help during these uncertainty times, the times of uncertainty as we're dealing with, as we phrase them, right? The COVID pandemic and everything else that's been going on globally. What do you think when you tell people right now, if they're trying and struggling to get a smile on their face, or they're struggling to have some self-belief, and they want to improve their concepts and their prerogatives of themselves in life, what would you say to them?
I can understand the difficulty in people smiling. It's like someone that's stressed out of their mind and worried about paying the bills, and someone saying, just don't worry about it. It's like, well, fuck you. I can't put food on the table, right? So I think sometimes there's two ways of looking at it, right? The first way, the way that came to me when you were talking about that reference point, is that right now, if you think about where most people are at in the world, if you don't smile, all good, just fucking survive, right? Like there's an element of, there is this real, disconnect from a lot of self-help, which is that people should be happy all the time and that everything should be great all the time. No, we're in a major, whatever you think about COVID, you can't deny the impact from a virus, and also you can't deny it from a government perspective, right? Like it's substantial. People are losing homes and lives and businesses, and everything's just gone to shit for a lot of people. Some people are very, very well off as a result of it, but most people are in a really bad place. So, okay, is it worse than World War II? No. Is it worse than World War I? No. But most of the people that are listening to this podcast never lived through that, or the Vietnam War, or the Afghan War, whatever you want to pick. So by comparison, most generations have struggled through something severe. This is just our generation's turn of that. And do you have to do that with a smile on your face? No. Would you enjoy it more if you did? Probably yes. But if you don't want to smile, all good. Just suck it up and deal with it and move forward, like persevere. I think that's an important message in and of itself, that you don't have to go through it and smile. You just have to go through it, because on the other side of this, what we learn from this will hopefully allow us to live more meaningful lives. Now, in saying that, I remember you can find just these magical little things in kids' movies, right? And I'm not sure if you've ever read this book. I think it's a book, but it's also turned into a movie, which is Alexander and the Really Terrible, Horrible, Awful, Bad Day. I'm not sure if I got that name or the title right, but that's it's really long title. And there's a scene in there where it's Jennifer Garner and Steve Carell. They're the mum and dad. And he is a rocket scientist for NASA. And this is during the global financial crisis, GFC. And so he's a rocket scientist from NASA. He gets laid off. Now, rocket scientists are obviously tremendously intelligent, but he don't have very transferable skills unless you're working for NASA. So he's now unemployed. He was the primary breadwinner of the family. He's now unemployed. And she was the stay-at-home mom, but now she set up her book. She writes these kids' books, and they're really blowing up. And now she's making good money. So they've had this complete role reversal in a time of crisis, which I think a lot of people can resonate with. They're lying in bed one night, and she rolls over to him. She says, "How you going?" She says, I haven't even seen you. I've been so busy. You've been looking after the kids. And he says, I'm doing really well. She says, but are you really? She's like, you used to be building rockets. Now you're changing diapers. Like, you had this big change. Are you not worried about not getting a job or any of those types of things? And he said, well, I went for a couple of interviews today. He says, but here's the question. Would worrying about getting a job help me get a job? And he says, no, it's not going to help me get a job. So what's the point worrying about it, right? And I think there's a real important distinction in that, which is that, some people get stressed because that's their pattern. Some people get angry because that's their pattern. Some people get anxious. Some people worry. Some people get sad. Some people are happy. It's just a learned experience. And so if you're struggling financially, does worrying about your money help you make more money? Probably not. So then why are you worrying about it? Instead, take all the energy that you allocated to worry and allocate it to creativity, and you'll find the solutions, or allocate it to hunger and you go out there and get a job. I tend to find that people get stuck in these states. So one is, you don't have to love it. Just persevere and endure, right? That's important. Get out of your head about this idea that it has to be all perfect all the fucking time, because it's not going to be. It's not Instagram. And then number two is that if you have acknowledged that you're going to persevere and you're going to struggle through it, then okay, great. Struggling is a choice. And just consider, okay, great. Well, you don't have to love it. You don't have to be happy, rainbows and lollipops. But on the same token, whatever emotion you're engaging in on a regular basis is going to have an impact. And so you have to ask yourself, if I was to choose an emotion for the experience to give me the best chance of success, would be what I'm doing right now, would that be the right emotion? And chances are, because it's reactionary, it's not going to be. And so it really is a trained skill to try and develop this sense of perspective and awareness and insight so that you respond how you want to respond to life rather than how you've been conditioned to do so.
That's such a critical lesson. That's a critical piece of information right there, as you say that, because I feel like that's something that our audience should really pay attention to. Instead of being trained on how to react or overreact to something, look at it for what it is, and don't let the worry weigh you down. Don't let the fear of things weigh you back, right? Hold you back, and look at it from the vantage point of being grateful and appreciative of where you're at, and work within your confines, but you can work to improve it instead of worrying about it.
Absolutely. And that's not to say that you want to be ignorant. I'm not saying don't, okay, well, should I not care about my finances? No, you should be very aware of the fact that you've got no money. But worrying about it, it's like, once you're aware of it, then worrying is an indulgence, right? So it's like, is worrying helping you? No. So just move into action. Worry is meant to be a trigger to say, pay attention to this. Once you paid attention to it, now act.
Absolutely. If you were a spirit animal, which spirit animal would you be and why? And if you want, I can go first. I'll go first.
Yeah.
I'll say owl, because I like wisdom. I like looking at things from a larger point of view, looking above and beyond current obstacles to see what's beyond that. Because I'm intuitive, I feel like that fits me. Plus, wisdom is important to me. So that's why I say owl.
I love that. I would say a silverback. I've always loved silverbacks. I think they're obviously very strong, very protective as well. And there's a beautiful sense of wisdom and power in that as well, right? I quite like that. So I'd probably say silverback.
Excellent. How can our audience find you if they want to contact you following this episode? What would you recommend?
Yeah, thank you for that, Jason. So we have a couple of places. You can check me out on social. So on Instagram, it's at Calvin Coyles. On Facebook, it's at Calvin Coyles Official. And then they can check me out over on wildsuccess.global, wild, W-I-L-D, success.global. They're probably the best places. Or you can check out an episode of the Wildcast as well with Calvin Coyles. That's all where you find all of your podcasts. You can find it there. Great.
I just want to thank Calvin for coming on the show today, sharing a lot of insight and wisdom. I think our audience should pay attention to what we were discussing, because I think there's a lot of valuable lessons about self-belief and not having limited thoughts within yourself, utilizing life experience to look outside of where you feel limited and see that you can truly transform yourself. Calvin is a world-leading trainer and transformer, personal transformation coach, I should say. And I feel like his knowledge of working with over 200,000 clients in 83 countries to develop the WILD method, it says a lot. So check out Calvin's information. I'm going to have everything in the show notes for his Instagram, as well as a website, which is wildsuccess.global. I'm looking forward to having more episodes like this in the future to feature such positive, transformative messages, because I think it really can give us hope, inspiration, and give us the ability to look beyond what's been in front of us for so long, which was a lot of uncertainty and a lot of negativity. And I think we can break through these kind of negative processes to see beyond. And that's important, because one of the parts of transformation, like a snake shedding its skin, is being able to envision your growth. Having the ability to have that vision, your internal alignment, a strategy to employ such are all things we discussed today. And I really do believe heavily in synchronicity. And we discussed some really important parts of synchronicity and how they interplay in our lives. So pay attention to your own beliefs. Where your mind may give you some limiting thoughts, try to isolate those thoughts and realize most of those will never become reality. Worry is a wasted emotion. It doesn't lead to anything productive. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. Stay positive, because when you're positive, anything's possible. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Social Psychic Radio Show. Don't forget to join us for another episode next time. If you enjoyed the show, we'd love for you to subscribe, rate, and give us a review on iTunes. You can also check us out on Facebook, and don't forget to visit the Social Psychic YouTube channel. Until next time, it's a big world out there. Keep an open mind, embrace your paradigms, and know that the universe is always yours to explore.